Is it evening or afternoon? I don't know what's the proper thing at 5 o'clock. What is it? Hey, everybody. Is that the right thing? Man, we're so glad you guys are joining us tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about our annual celebration and what this is all about. It is a time for us to pause and reflect on the great things that God has been doing in our church over this last year and to talk about some things that we're moving forward with. And this actually represents the first time that we've come together for a church conference since last year's annual celebration as well. So we have been doing a lot of things in a new way, and tonight will be in a new way as well. I need to let you know something right off the bat. Whether you're in person or online, everybody needs to know this. Here is a website that if you have your phone or if you are on an iPad or something like that, if you want to vote on the things that we're going to vote on later, and if you don't have one of these packets and you want one, this is the website you need to type in, and you'll have to type it in. You can't just click and get there. We didn't make it public, so you have to go directly to this one. It's fbcweatherford.org/AC 2020, Annual Celebration 2020. And there's two links on that website. One will be a link to later in the service when we're doing some votes on the things that we have to vote on. But then the other thing is just a link to this packet. So here's what you can expect tonight. We're going to be sharing some great stories from 2020. We're going to be talking about things that are going to be happening in the future. We're going to introduce you to some people and some things that are going to help us move forward as a church. But more than anything, we're just going to celebrate what God's doing in the ministries of First Baptist Church. That's the link that you'll need. I'll remind you of it again in a couple of times. But right now, let's just begin worshiping together as we start this celebration.
All right, come on. If you're in the room, let's stand real quick. Anytime a body of believers gets together, we just hope that there is a way that we can worship and join together as a family. Come on, let's do this together. We've waited for this day. We've waited for this day. We're gathered in your name, calling out to you. Your glory like a fire, awakening desire will burn our hearts with truth. And you're the reason. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason we're singing. Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river pouring from your heart and filling every part of our praise. Come on, we know He's here, your presence in this place, your glory on our face. We're looking to the sky, descending like a cloud. You're standing with us now. Lord, unveil our eyes, and He's the reason. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason we're singing. Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, the mighty river flowing from your heart and filling every part of our praise. Let's sing that chorus again. Open up and open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, the mighty river flowing from your heart and filling every part of our praise.
Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord.
Let's sing it again. Show us your glory.
Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord.
His presence, we just pray that there's a special encounter with Him tonight. Come on, I want every voice in here, every voice online, singing this together. Open up. Yes, open up the heavens. We want to see You. Open up the floodgates. A mighty river flowing from Your heart and filling every part of our praise. One more time, open up. Yes, open up the heavens. We want to see You. Open up the floodgates. A mighty river flowing from Your heart and filling every part of our praise. Don't be afraid to praise Him in His place tonight. We're going to sing All Hail the Power of Jesus' name. I want you to lift your voices loud. Here we go.
All hail the power of Jesus' name. Let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown Him Lord of all. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown Him Lord of all.
Chosen seed.
Chosen seed of Israel's race, He ransomed from the fall. Hail Him who saves you by His grace, and crown Him Lord of all. Hail Him who saves you by His grace, and crown Him Lord of all.
Here we go. Let every kindred,
every tribe on this terrestrial ball, to Him all majesty ascribe, and crown Him Lord of all. To Him all majesty ascribe, and crown Him Lord of all.
here's the last verse right here. Oh, thou with yonder.
That with yonder sacred throne, we at His feet may fall. We'll join the everlasting song and crown Him Lord of all. We'll join the everlasting song and crown Him Lord of all.
Come on, let's get praise this evening. Amen. And so, Father, Lord, we just have some fun tonight praising Your name. Lord, as we just lift just the incredible things that You have done in this church and through these people and just in this community that You placed us, Lord, we just pray that You We're just enlighten us on some things that we may not have known, but just encourage us and strengthen us. Lord, we are so excited that You just continue to use these people, Lord, that You would continue to use us in a way just to bring people closer towards You and just to build relationships with the one and only King. So, Father, we praise You, and we just lift Your name in all things we say. Amen. You guys can have a seat.
All right, well, we're going to have some fun here for a little bit. Now, if you were ever at one of our annual celebrations before, you know we're usually in the gym and we got food and we've got all the videos and all the pictures and all the stuff, and of course, COVID, right? We get to say that for all kinds of times, and so here we are again. And then on top of that, you had Snowmageddon happen just this week, which that was fun. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to tell you the story of last year, probably some of the things that you may or may not be aware of, and just give you a picture of what was going on in the church this last year. And so if you look in your packet, or if you have your packet downloaded, this middle part is just kind of a fun little timeline with some of the highlights of it that we're going to walk through right now. So I'm going to get Brittany to launch us off and tell us a little bit about what was happening at the first of the year before all the things hit last year.
Am I on? I'm
There you go.
on. Do I have to stand or can I stay seated? They're
We'll,
seated. I'm
we'll
staying
vote
seated.
on this. Who wants her to stand? And who wants you? As your husband wants you to stand. Who wants her to sit? Who doesn't care? All in favor? All right, go ahead, Brittany. You're good.
I saw the students at least somewhat in my favor, so I didn't
Have
make
at
them
it.
too mad when they were with me. So yeah, we started off 2020. It was really an exciting year, and I'd say the guys, I'm surrounded. The guys this week, I was reading through our minutes and our notes from our staff meeting, and it was very comical what we thought in January versus where the whole process of the year was very funny to look through our thought process as we went into 2020. But yeah, we started off 2020 in a great position. It was years of preparing for just excellence. We were always moving towards excellence, and we started our year off, and January, February, we looked like we were heading in an excellent direction. And so we had new staff members. David Walden came on staff at the beginning of last year, and Laura Walden, who is game changer down in our preschool and kids area. And I will just take the moment to say I could not have made it through 2020 without her. So if you see her, she is a lifesaver for me. And we had actually hired Matt, but he was going to go on a mission trip with his former church and was coming after that. So he wasn't here right at the beginning of 2020, but he came just in time. So when we started 2020, we were averaging 300 plus every Sunday. We had a steady 8% growth from the previous year. In our ministry events, we had a chili cook-off, which had been an annual event and had gotten to the point where people were being competitive in how they decorated and how we played games. I don't know. Yes, there's pictures of chili cook-off, but I don't know if y'all remember the games. I mean, the kids were intense against the adults. It was a great multi-generation event. Our preteen ministry went to Superstart. We have been able to do that the past couple years. And then I lost my page here. I'm going to call out my daughter who let the iPad die, so I don't have an iPad to put it on today. So preteen went to Superstart. In missions with our kids, we were starting to get our kids to go around and see how people use missions in life, and this is out at Riata Equine, which is Justin High's vet clinic, which if y'all are familiar with the Highs here, he goes to Nicaragua, I believe, each year to help people with their horses and stuff in that area. So the kids got to go see how you can take your career and serve with it still, which is great. Pinewood Derby was another big event. We had a lot of kids participate in that. And then D-Now happened for our students, and they had a great weekend with a lot of attendance as well. And then WindShape had their kickoff week in March, and we didn't do WindShape last year, but I can't go without mentioning that. One of the biggest things is getting our registration numbers. There's all kinds of things that go in that, and to get 100 is it's a feat, not a feat, but it's a milestone for us. And normally, a couple months in, we cross that 100 mark and we're excited. We had over 100 kids register within the first 24 hours, which is huge for us for WindShape. So it was great that people know what it is, they're expecting it, they want their kids to go, and so that was amazing to have happen. And we had a missions team fly to Alaska. And tag, you're it, because I won't go down that road.
So you get that we started the year great, and we had all these things going on and all these wonderful plans, and then our team heads up to Alaska. And as we're getting on a plane to go to Alaska, people begin to ask the question, should we go? Should we not go? Are we supposed to go? Should we make it here? As a matter of fact, I had already gone up to Alaska and was there a few days before, and the mission team called me from Seattle going, well, all this stuff seems to be hitting with this virus. should we go ahead and come on? And this is how little we knew about it. I'm like, well, you're not getting your money back, so you might as well come on up to Alaska. I mean, I don't know how this is going to hit. And we had no idea. And one of the things I've told people all the time, while we were I was in Nome, Alaska, when the coronavirus onset happened in the United States. And we've done that mission trip. I've been a part of that mission trip since 2010. We've been up there several times. And usually it's this time where everybody's coming together and the town's happy we're there and we're doing all this work. And it was like overnight when these things started hitting, you could tell that the people in that area were like, you're not from here, you need to go home. It was just this immediate feeling of things had shifted because the unknown aspect of the virus. So 4 of us ended up there. And so at that time, I'm calling home, and Brittany is our only staff member at the time that was full-time here with us, and Howell. Howell and Brittany were the ones here. And I'm getting phone calls going, well, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. So March 8th was our last pre-COVID worship service where everybody gathered together. Can you remember? It's almost a year that happened. And we had to figure out within a week how to go fully online and do that while I was in Alaska, getting other people home and figuring out how to do this mission trip. And so before that, we had recorded our services, and then we would put the sermons up later because we didn't have licensing for music. We didn't have any of the things to do this stuff. And within a week, we had to make all those things happen. We established a communication plan with the church saying, okay, we'll let you know how things are going, and we'll say something every Thursday because things were changing so much. We established a care plan. Our deacons and other leaders in the church, it's not a deacon only, it's a deacon-led care plan where the deacons led it and others in our church were contacting people in the church to make sure we were okay. And all this was happening while we're also trying to observe a max capacity of no more than 10 people in a single location. Y'all remember that? So the number of people that it took to do a worship service was very difficult. And so we're trying to make that work. I'm going to show you some of these pictures. Our first worship service online was March 22nd, and here's how we did it. We had that camera where Bruce is. I know that you online can't see it. That's the only camera our church owned, and we used to record with that. And so we only had one camera. And so we just pushed the one camera around, and we did worship service. And at that time, we're thinking, things will get back to normal in a couple of weeks. You can just kind of keep rolling. Then the next week, we decided, here's what y'all don't know. That side of the stage was set up for music, and this side was set up for speaking. So it looked like we were big production value at that point in time. And we would use a video to get between one shot and the other. And then we started running into, well, we can't get the words on the screen. And so keep on going. So in April, we finally said, well, the only way we can get words on the screen is to pre-record the music and actually edit them. And so Matt and I would sit up here. We would record music on a Thursday, and we would sit up here till about 1 a.m, editing the music together because we didn't have a high-tech anything. It was Matt's digital camera, my digital camera, and that camera, and we're walking around and we're trying to sync lips up and we're trying to do all this stuff and get things working so that it worked. But we finally got the words on the bottom of the screen.
And on Sunday morning, everyone thought y'all were masters at changing clothes.
Yeah, everybody thought we changed clothes real quick every Sunday. And then we finally decided, well, we're having trouble. As beautiful as the church looks after the repairs, when you put it in a box this big, it's like, why are they standing in front of a brown wall? And so we began to do things to improve the look. And so on, I believe this was Mother's Day, we finally ordered these backgrounds. And you wouldn't believe the feedback we got. People were like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Where are y'all? We're like, we're still right in here in a little bitty spot in the church. And so we did that. All leading up to a relaunch. And so this relaunch of in-person and online began in May 24th. But here's the biggest thing that happened. From March the 15th to May the 24th, we had to figure out all the logistics, not just of how to get this to work, but all the implications that it meant for us otherwise. For the first time ever for us as a church, we had to begin thinking of what this is like for people who aren't sitting right here in front of us. And so online worship began last year and still does because we still have a lot of people who engage with us in that way, it dictates what we're able to do in the worship service. Because if we can't do something and produce it well online, then it really limits what we're able to do. If not, then we're not engaging the people who can't come. And over this last year, by doing things online, our homebound people have been able to engage more. We've reached out in other new ways. We've had conversations with people from Arizona to Connecticut to Wisconsin who are watching our church online now just because, well, we came across this and found it and we like what you guys are doing. So it's pretty amazing to see how this is going. And so in the midst of all that, making all of those changes just in that short amount of time, and I know we're still learning and going in this process, but then at the same time, as Brittany had mentioned, at the first of the year, she brags on Laura Walden, but we brought David Walden on. And David was helping us with our adult Bible study connection. And during that time, he's just been a godsend because we're doing all this stuff with worship. And I was like, David, can you just contact the leaders in Bible study, see what they're doing and what's going on? So not only were we trying to get this stuff going online for worship, we got it going online with Zoom Bible studies. We started doing our daily devotionals March 25th of last year. We tried to engage people more online because the hardest thing, and I'll still say this, the hardest thing about being online is getting no feedback from the people who are online. And we know that many of you who are watching us online right now are locked in with us just like you ever have before, but some of you I haven't seen since last March 8th because you're making the decision that's best for you to be at home or to be distant right now. And it's so important for you to reach out to us and let us know that the things that we're doing are making an impact for you, or if you have any way that we can do those better. And so, remember we started doing things like going to people's houses and pre-recording them so you could see faces other than mine, praise the Lord, on the online and different things like that. And our deacons did a great job of continuing the care calls and things like that. So all of that stuff changed, but then all of our ministries began to change as well. We had big plans for missions last year, but then that shifted. So Matt, tell us how it affected missions with a microphone.
With a microphone. It really changed missions because where can you go? What can you do? Who can you see? It became a big question. So it quickly started to shift. And I think at the time I was meeting with Jenny Kettle, who is our missions chair, and she was helping me out a lot in just what we do. And we started doing some different things, even we partnered with Thornhill Catering and the Parker County Ministerial Alliance Food Pantry, it's a mouthful, the food pantry was giving out meals all the time, and we partnered with Thornhill to provide 250 meals to people in need in our community. And so something so simple as just a prepared meal, it was as simple as you take it home, heat it up, and it's good to go. And so we started doing some stuff like that, but then as you continued throughout the year, we had things going like, we took up the donations for those Christmas boxes where we took in 273 packages of gravy and, Brittany cringes every time I say that, and 270 cans of green beans, and doing stuff like that, and then even providing our students and our kids and even our church with an opportunity to give back a little bit while still staying right here. They could do it from the comfort of their home through Operation Christmas Child, where we were able to pack, I think, 140 boxes that got sent out worldwide to places like Mexico, Guatemala, some in Africa. They got sent out all over the world, and even in our students and our kids spent time praying over those boxes and praying over those kids that were going to receive those. And so it really quickly became less about what trips are we going on, and it made us start looking at what are we doing right here in Parker County, and what are we doing every day that we walk, and started to kind of allow us to meet with our local partners even and see what are you doing and how can we serve you, because they're trying to figure this out the same that we are. And so just getting together with them and starting to try to be creative to say what can we do and how can we start to serve you. But then even starting just to look at what a better time to look at some partnerships and starting new partnerships as we kind of look towards doing a few new things and have started or soon we'll start a partnership with some churches in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and in some other places in our states, but then also some partnerships for our students to be involved, for our church to be involved, and just really coming together and taking a look at what we are doing missions in missions as a whole. And so through 2020, while as weird as it was when we had big plans, it's kind of cool just to see what God did through 2020 in our missions program, just because it gave us some time to really give back here locally, and to focus on giving ourselves opportunities just to serve.
Awesome. You know, and that people connection became such a big deal, as opposed to the trip side of it and this, but just caring for the needs of people and offering the opportunities for people to be connected together. And that also went into ministry as well, because the way that Brittany said earlier, we laugh at our staff notes because we keep an agenda every staff meeting, and the things that we were saying last year compared to what we're having to do now and the way that we're doing things now, we just go, who would have thought this would have changed in just this short of amount of time? But tell us some of the ways that changed, Brittany.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say I cringe over gravy. I don't like gravy, not like what we did. It's like, I should clarify. I don't like it. But yeah, so ministry, if I learned one lesson about my job in 2020, is that ministry stinks without people. It is all about the people. It's a hard job without being engaged with people, and that was very apparent about 2 weeks into this pandemic. But I think when Matt and I were talking, we kind of just summed up, like, if we look at how we processed through the pandemic in ministry, is that people needed connection, which is why we have gone to the point that now we offer events and programs if you are comfortable with them to participate in. But it's for you to decide, because I think about midsummer, when more stuff continued to cancel, it was, even in my own kids' life, I was realizing, like, mentally they need some of this. And so that was becoming more apparent, that the connection is needed. And so we early on had to figure out how can we stay engaged with kids, which is really, really tricky because they're minors and they don't have Facebook and they don't all have cell phones, especially in my area. Yours all have a cell phone. Mine do not. And even that, just there's legal stuff that goes on. And so we're having to navigate all of this. But we got to where on Wednesday nights, the kids would get on Zoom, and we would do like the younger kids and the older kids, and we'd just play games. So it was, we talk about maybe some prayer requests, which usually is where they can share stressors, and then we'd play games. And some of those youth are in the kids' picture. I see them looking at it, so I'm like, oh yeah, you were with me. So yeah, we did Zoom, and just getting together weekly for that, and it was just a fun time, but it was meant to be connection and fellowship. And then Easter was not happening like we normally see Easter, so we wanted to do something, and we had started collecting eggs and candy, and you don't want to keep candy for a year, so we came up with, we'll just go around and put eggs in people's yard. And we had people sign up for it because of the nature of, at that time, not everybody wanted us to come bring stuff to their house. So if people signed up for that event, we went and dropped eggs at their house. We did something similar at the 4th of July, just to like, hey, we remember you, we're thinking about you. And we did weekly mail-outs for Bible study for all kids, preschool and older kids. And it had a devotional, it had their Bible study. They could then go to the Facebook page and watch their Bible study video. And Laura was a champ. She would have everything pre-cut, ready to go. Parents just open that envelope, pull it out, and assemble it, and watch the video. So your kid could engage through Bible study all during the pandemic, and she was amazing at that. When WinShape was canceled, and as we're rolling into summer, and it's just continuing on, and a lot of this is, you can't cross state lines and do things like that. So there was a lot of things that were still COVID risky. So we had Focus, which became an online event for families, and we had quite a few families participate. We had boxes they came and picked up, and they tuned in live with us, and then there were games and small group discussion for the family to engage with, and just a fun time for families to have together. when camp was canceled, we, both Matt and I ended up doing something camp-like, but again, we went to the Texas Star here in town because it was like, well, if we get contained to our county, then I still could take them out there and we could do something. And we had what we called Summer Connect. We called it something different because it wasn't camp, it wasn't quite the same, but it was a lot of fun and we had a great time out there. The preteens still were able to do a camp out. Outdoor events and swimming events became our favorite thing through the summer because all of this was still like acceptable through COVID. Then as we began to talk about relaunch, it was a whole nother ballgame of volunteers that used to serve either maybe a vulnerable population or live with a vulnerable population or maybe work in a hospital setting and couldn't come back to serve with kids. So we had a huge decrease in the number of volunteers. So even if you remember when we started back our relaunch with kids, we did every other week in preschool, and then we finally were able to do every week with preschoolers there. Extended session had to change up just a tad, and then as far as Fifth Sunday worship, that's where that comes from. It helps us on our volunteer rotation, and just through all of this, we know our volunteers are important, but y'all don't realize like that down there does not happen without volunteers. And I think a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. We just, the kids are down doing their thing, but it takes so many volunteers. And we have great volunteers who've come back and helped us through this. So there's several pictures. I don't know if we've gone through all of them, but on top of all of this, we also had his kids through the pandemic. And we had set ourselves up. We had adjusted tuition with them to go into 2020. We had worked towards getting better pay for the employees and matching like a tuition increase that came from several years of not doing a tuition increase. And I think we got 3 weeks in on the new tuition maybe before coronavirus hit. And then with their regulations, they could only take essential worker kids for a good period of time. So we had reduced income. We still had to staff everyone, so we had a full staff but reduced income. At one point in the summer, several teachers caught the virus, and so they had to shut down for 2 weeks because the health official came in and he was like, it's the kids who are probably passing it with no symptoms and giving it to the adults. And through all this, we've had to do a number of policy changes. And now they're to the point it's rebuilding staff and rebuilding enrollment because a lot of people out of jobs pulled their kids, and now people getting back into jobs and building that up from now. So it's just been a journey and a learning process, but even with all of this, we still had so much good we were able to do through the year.
Anybody remember all this? Yeah, so I mean, we were living this, and then we said this last year, but it's funny too because Matt's first official day of work was the first official day of lockout for everybody to stay home and not do. So imagine starting a new church, becoming the youth minister, and this is what you get is the first thing you can do is nothing, and you can't go see anybody and you can't meet. So I mean, Matt had all these challenges with students, he had challenges with adults, but in the midst of all that, I mean, Matt did the same things. He had the Zoom calls and the Easter baskets and the 4th of July things and pool parties. And then the adult ministry started with different things like men's night out that we started just, again, having these fellowship times together. Ladies' ornament exchange happened by the end of the year. All these kind of things that were going on with ministry. In the midst of all this, facility-wise, we were wanting to take advantage of the time that we're out for just a little bit. We wanted to do a few things while we were out just a little bit. Tell us some of the things we did at the facility, Lance.
Well, the first thing we had to do was do a major deep clean on the entire facility. We had to come through and wipe everything down, figure out which cleaning supplies we could use with coronavirus before anybody knew what supplies could be used for coronavirus. But then we deep cleaned the whole place, and then we were able to start concentrating on the facilities. First thing we did was go through the second floor and repainted all the classrooms on the second floor. And then once we realized, we've got a little bit more time before people come back, then we started building the walls to separate some of the classrooms. And so we divided 4 classrooms into 7, and created a coffee area upstairs on top of these newly painted walls.
So hold on, I want to say this. So we made our rooms smaller so that more people could fit in them because we thought that this was going to be, come on, laugh with me on that one. It's got to be good because this is what we're thinking. Okay, hey, we got to do this. And we wanted to create these new groups and everything, and this is what we were preparing for. So anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so we added all that, got things ready for the new spaces upstairs, and never got to use them right away. Then as we got ready to do more with the online streaming and such, we had to build a studio. So we built walls downstairs and ran electrical and ran IT cabling and tried to figure out how do we get a cable from up there down through these walls down to the basement, and where do we drill holes, and there's a lot of going on with that. But and then even still then we're thinking, well, people are getting ready to come back, so we'll restripe the parking lot, and had a lot of troubles with that, with paint machines that didn't work and having to get new striping machines. Ended up getting a new air conditioner in the gym because the one that was there in preparation for fall and people coming back, the air conditioner itself worked, but the heater didn't. So we had to get that replaced during the summer. We were able to get these new handrails on stage so that when the choir came back, we had something to hold on to as we were getting down off the stage.
Y'all remember when we had choir?
Also during the early part, thinking of the South Campus, we put fence up around so that people weren't driving out and doing four-wheeling out on the South property. And then as more people came on, as Caleb came online, we needed to do a remodel in the offices. So we did some planning, had to do a bunch of work, and then we ended up taking out walls, putting in walls, reconfiguring the entire office space so that we had more usable space in the offices that will accommodate our larger staff. And then as we got into November and December, we were able to get the city to replace some of our parking lot lights out here in the south parking lot. We got some lights on the east-facing wall behind those pillars to light up. And just after we decorated for Christmas, once everybody was here, we started reinstalling the pipes for the organ. But it was, since we were all decorated, that we wouldn't let them do anything above the wall. And then once we took down the decorations, then we started seeing the pipes going back up. So there was and through all this, we've had to change the cleaning procedures and concentrate more on detail work and the chemicals and making sure that we're keeping our cleaning at a high standard for the safety of everybody who does come in.
And so all of this was not planned last year. That's the big deal about all this. All these things that we're talking about right now, and the list of things that I made them skip because they're running out of time, that's why they're whispering over there going, Lyndall's speeding us up, Lyndall's speeding us up, is because we didn't have any of this planned. None of this was in our agenda before we started. And the reason Caleb's not saying anything is because he wasn't in our agenda yet until August or September of last year. And Hal and I had talked about this. You know, Hal had made the announcement that he's moving into retirement and worship pastor emeritus, and we had plans, man, of what these steps were going to be like and how we were going to do this. And all of those plans, none of them ended up going like they wanted. And so you want to talk about the saint in all of this, and that's Hal Simmons, and the way that he, you work. And I give him that. And just to let you know, we still do have plans to have a celebration and to celebrate his work here, and he's still not going anywhere. Y'all see him, he's proven that. by now, but all of those plans changed as well in the midst of that. And so it's just been a crazy, crazy year. But in the midst of it, we're now doing things that we didn't plan, but also things that we wouldn't have imagined that we would have been able to do. And the way that God's using our church and the things that are happening here right now is pretty amazing. So we're going to transition now to the what you got?
We skipped Matt. Ministry.
So we're going to transition now into the next things that we need to do. And we've got stuff in our packet that we need to be official with and get done, or we're going to be here all night long. So first of all, let me just remind you that you've got it in your packet, and hopefully you were able to get that online. If you didn't get that online, can you put that up there for me again, please? Wonderful tech volunteers from the back. If you want one of these packets, they're here in front, and I'm sure one of our students will hand you one if you're here in person, or if you are online, you can go to this website and you can get that. And in this packet, we just need to work through a few things real quick. And the first one is you'll see the conference minutes from this time last year, where we were given reports and making plans for the things that we were going to do. And you will notice that on your link, it says the annual church conference survey. If you click that, you'll be able to vote on all of these things, or if you're here in person, we can do a vote for you that are in person as well. And this is going to be different because we're going to go through all of these things, and you're going to have to vote all at once here in just a little bit. So I'm going to walk you through the packet, and then we'll vote at the end, and you can go to that survey. The first thing in your packet is the minutes from last year. That's normal, so you see that. The second thing in your packet, now get this. This is one of the big celebrations. These are the members who joined last year. And since we haven't had a church conference in a year, we need to vote on them tonight to accept them. And this represents 31 additions to the church family between all of them, which is the largest number of people that have joined our church in years. And that was a year that we didn't meet. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible to see what God is doing, and we'll vote on them. Also, you'll see the next, and this is not necessarily anything we need to vote on. This is just to let you know, these are the people we lost last year. This is our memorial roll, and so people that have been very much a part of our church, and just want to let you know that they have passed in this last year, and to be remembering them as well. And then, of course, you have our timeline here that we gave you that just highlights some of the things. And so I'm going to get Chris to go ahead and make your way up here while I'm talking a little bit about what happened financially last year. Just like we had ministry plans last year, we do a budget every year. And that budget starts off with saying, oh, we're going to spend money doing this, and we're going to spend money doing that. And none of that happened. We ended up spending money in areas that we never thought we'd spend money in. And Chris and the finance team did a phenomenal job of navigating this pandemic and the changes that we had that went all throughout last year, where we're basically going, hey, we know this isn't in the budget, but we need to figure out how to make this done. And we know this isn't in the budget, but we need to figure out that. So you want to share some of the highlights of that, Chris?
Is this on? Hi. Well, first I want to say that I absolutely love this church family, and I have been completely blessed to see what God has done, even in the midst of our craziness last year. Not only have I seen, people that I care about being baptized, and new members coming in, and church families, and us praising together still. May it be online or at home. I was able to watch online with my mom, who is in hospice. So it's something that's super special to me, that we have really done so much for our church and in our church. And as the finance committee, I'm honored to be a part of that. I wish Pat was here. He hasn't been able to be here in person. But just real quick, he is that character that Lyndall spoke of today, and just always have led us very well. And but the finance team has been extremely blessed and honored, not just to work together because we like each other, but because we have seen the faithfulness, continued faithfulness, even in such an extremely uncertain time, that our church still gave over 99% of what we budgeted last year. That is phenomenal. And it's actually more than we gave in 2019 also. So I just can't, God is so good. And he continued, I'm blessed to see the financial part of it too, because not just your faithfulness, but things like when we had to do improvements, we had to spend money. So technically we went over budget. But you know what? I'm pretty blessed with, he would text me, or somebody at the office would text and say, last week we made a decision to spend this much money, and it was to do this or this. And then we'd get a donation for sometimes the exact amount. And it happened, and it's giving me goosies. It happened again and again and again, and it just like, just being able to see a different perspective. As far as the money part goes, it doesn't sound much fun, but it really has been such a blessing to see how we continue to give, even when we were doubtful what was going to happen to us. Our church family continued to do so. Obviously faithful, God keeps providing, and I'm so excited to see what this year happens, because we've got this together. We think of the money that we've spent on all the additions that you've talked about, and now we're reaching people, like he said. I'm just so excited to see what's next.
That's awesome.
Is
Thank
that
you,
it?
Chris. That's great.
And
I will
I did
also
go
go ahead
over
and
the-
say, by the way, there is a packet here, and you can see the numbers, and you can compare giving and stuff. And like Chris was mentioning, last year our church gave more than ever. In a time when you thought, oh my goodness, there's this crisis and what's going to happen, our church, which I always say is an incredibly generous church, again stepped up and gave above and beyond, and that's why we were able to do incredible things. And had we not had the extra expenses to make things go online and to remodel offices and to repair air conditioners and things like that, we would have actually been right on budget with what was a visionary budget, because we upped it like a large percentage the year before, going, man, we just want to challenge our church to give, and the church was up for that. And so you see that in your packet, the financial highlights here. And so in a little bit.
I didn't read one number, and I
It's all right.
apologize. I
You're
am
good.
not Pat Sneed.
Well, it's the story. It's good.
But you can read all those numbers, and if you have any questions, many of the finance committee are here today.
That's right. So because this comes from a team, we don't need to have a second on this. And so, again, we'll do all these votes here in just a little bit. So if you'll go to the next part of your packet, we also have some pretty incredible leadership teams here that help the church navigate what we're doing. Our church, if you're curious about it, we have a church council, and then we also have 4 standing committees that help lead the decisions we make as a church: missions committee, facilities and long-range planning committee, finance committee, and personnel committee. Teams, committees, I do that interchangeably, so if I say one or the other, I apologize. It just depends on the mood I'm in, I guess, at the time. And so if you'll notice on our side with our leadership teams, any person that's on there that has an asterisk by their name is new to that team for this coming year. And so I'll just call out the new ones. On missions, it's Kenneth Crawford, Emma Gutierrez, Chad McCarley, and Katie Moe are new this coming year. No changes on facilities and long-range plan, no changes on finance. And on personnel, J.D. Smith and Dina Walker are the new additions to the personnel team for this coming year. And again, we're going to vote on this in just a minute. And then our church council is made up of the chairperson of these teams, as well as 3 people that are just elected by the church to serve on church council. And our church council helps the staff navigate the things that we're planning and make sure that we're on task with vision and all these things that are going on with there. And so this year, we have 2 additions proposed for the church council. And because of the way our bylaws are written, we vote on them individually. So when you get to that survey, you'll see you're voting on the teams just as teams, but on the church council members as individuals. And so the first one's Amos Hooker. Amos is right over there in person, and you're online not going, who's he waving at? I'm waving at Amos. Amos and his family have been here at the church about 2.5 years, and they're serving our church in kids ministry and in other areas like that. Ace is the one I talk to often in worship services, so he's one He's one of the spawns of Amos there that I talk with as well. So I will say that. But love that family and love what they do. And so just if you don't know them, I would encourage you to get to know them a little bit. And then the other is Sarah Parsons. Sarah's been here at our church about 13 years. And again, also serves in our kids ministry and does some wonderful things around our church and community. If you don't know her or her family, I would encourage you to get to know them as well. Okay, so those are all the things that we have to vote on. So I will, if you are online watching this and wish to vote, you need to go to that survey that we have, the annual celebration survey. You do have to put your name in there. That's the only required answer on this because we need to be able to confirm that you're a church member for your vote to count. And then you can just go down each one of those. I know you can't see this, but I'm going to hold it up like you can anyway. And the first one is, and I'll do this in person for us here. I need a motion to accept the minutes from the February 23rd, 2020 church conference as written. Do I have a second? Tim Mitchell. All right, all in favor of accepting those, say aye. Any opposed? And online, you can vote yes or no, and we'll count those up. And the next one is, do I have a second to affirm the request for membership as printed? Thank you, Tim Mitchell, again. All right, appreciate that. And all in favor of accepting the request for membership as presented, say aye. Anybody opposed? I didn't think so. All right, same online. And you heard Chris share the story behind the financial report, and you see the financial report here. And so it comes from the committee, so it doesn't need a second. So do all in favor of accepting the finance report as presented by the finance team, say aye. All right, anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. And those of you who are online, all you got to do is click yes or no. Or if you're in person and you want to click yes, you can do that as well, just to be fun. Next thing is, because this comes from church council as well, doesn't need a second. So do you affirm the leadership teams as presented in the conference packet? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. And then on these, we do need you to vote. We're not going to do ayes and noes on this, but on these two, if you wish to vote on affirming the selection of Amos Hooker to the church council and affirming the selection of Sarah Parsons to the church council, you'll need to log on to here and vote and let me know that, and we'll use those votes as the count because those do have to be individual votes for that. That's all the business that we have. Wasn't that good? We do business meeting fast in this setting. There's one other thing that I do want to bring, and it's for discussion right now, just to make you aware of it. And then we will have an official vote on it later because it's the way that we need to do this. We are proposing to make 2 changes to our bylaws to help us function just a little bit better. The first one is this. For church council right now, the bylaws read that it's recommended that the church propose. If we have 1 empty space, we had to have 2 people propose. If we have 2 empty spaces, we had to have 3 people propose. And so the way that worked, it was like we were going to be asking people all the time, knowing that one of them wasn't going to get elected. And of course, there's purpose behind that because you want to make sure that people aren't just put on there or not. And so what we're proposing is recommending that the church that the candidates for at-large church council members must be approved by at least a 3/4 vote of the members who are present and qualified at a church conference. You don't have to remember this right now. You just need to know that we're going to make that proposed change, and we'll put that in writing and let you discuss that at our next church conference. But that way we can vote on it at the next church conference because you know that it is coming and it will be in writing on that. The other proposed change that we will make, which we have actually been functioning this way for a couple of years, but we just need to make it to get legal, and that is we are proposing to change the number of people required to be on the leadership teams from 6 to 5. Our bylaws state that each team needs to have 6 on it. We're proposing that we just have 5 on them. That's how we've been operating for a couple of years anyway, and so we just need to change the bylaws to clean that up. Nothing you need to do on that other than know that that's coming later. All right, Caleb, I'm all out of order. What's next? Is it me? Or what's supposed to be next? I'm wrapping. I just want to make sure I'm in the right spot. I don't want to do this and then do something and then. Okay, well, here we go. All right. So I told y'all that part of this annual meeting, annual celebration, is to get some vision for where we're going. And so we're done with all the legal part of this. You've heard some of the stories, even though I rushed us through them for time, because I just wanted to have a little bit of time to tell you where we're going. At this time last year, we thought we knew where we were going. And that's really the uniqueness of this, is that we thought we had a plan. We had plans for ministries, and we had plans for missions, and we were working on things with staff, our finance. I'm amazed because, and Chuck will tell you this, because Chuck was chair of the finance for 3 years with me, and he's watched this go from where we were to where we are to where we're even headed on this. And every time we start talking about finances and where we've worked to get and what we're able to do, really last year was the first time that our church had ever been in a position where we could go, hey, we have some resources available to start doing some ministry and some things the way that we want to do it. And then you know what happened. So all of those things got kind of put out there in a different way. I encourage you to ask Brittany sometime about her almost retirement from staff, because I was in Alaska and she was here trying to figure out how to do things online. And so that's fun. It's always a good conversation. I owe her a lot for that time. And again, you can talk with Hal about how many conversations that we've had about, okay, Hal, I know this isn't how we had this plan, but I'm so sorry. We're going to have to do these things this way and this. And he's just been, all right, we're fine. Y'all know Hal. He's just been like, okay. That's just been kind of the way it's going, easy going on this. But what's been amazing is that though we didn't know it was coming, God did. I just want to throw that out there again. Though we didn't know it was coming, God did. And not to gloss over the incredible tragedy of pandemic and a lot of the horrible things that did come from it, and not to ignore some of the difficulties and the things from that, but to remind us that even in the midst of that, we did see the hand of God working in some incredible ways. We're reminded that ministry is not about programs. Ministry is about people. And you can get kind of caught up in times and get disappointed that camp's not happening, or get disappointed that Windshape's not happening, or get disappointed that these things taken away, or we can't gather for worship, or I don't like the way this is done. But really, when you all boil it down to it, it's all about people. And every year I stand up here and I start going, I need to give us vision for where we're going in the next year. And I kind of laugh about that this year. And here's why. Because last year I stood up here and gave us vision, and then nobody remembers it, and it's kind of irrelevant. But I'm not even going to bring it up, because all the things that we said we were going to do just kind of changed. And so as I was praying and getting ready for tonight and going, okay, God, well, what is next? Because obviously we don't know what's next. What is next? And nostalgia maybe snuck in for just a little bit, or whatever, if you can call 5 years nostalgic. But here's what I did. I went back and I thought, what was the first sermon I ever preached at First Baptist Church? Outside the one that y'all had to vote on me for, which I don't ever want to preach that message again. I was so nervous. But when all those things were done and we're here, and I was praying about, okay, God, now here we are together, and I know the things that we've been through together as a church, and I know where we want to go in the future. What is it? And the title of my first sermon from October of 2015 was What Matters Most, and it was about this. John 13, verse 34 and 35, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So I don't stand up here tonight to tell you what's next is, we're working on an app and we're going to have that out, which is true, to help with things. And oh my gosh, we've got ministry things that are happening and we're planning and getting those, which is true. And we're figuring out how to navigate all these changes that have needed to be made with the coronavirus and with the things that are going on so that we can now do ministry in a new way. All that's true. We continue every week to try to update and do better for our online worship services. That's true. All those things are true, but here's what's next. Love one another. That's what's next. Love one another. There's no new big grand ministry plans, because if we've been reminded of anything over this past year, it's been that nothing can take away the opportunity to love one another. Even this last week, we got reminded of that in a big way, of people inviting people they don't know into homes and getting things taken care of and reaching out to neighbors and doing this type of stuff. It's loving one another. And, the vision of our church that we worked on with this team of people who came together and got honest about where our church is and where we want it to be, that's where we came up with this vision together to say we want to be a church where people discover they're fully known and fully loved by God. And I didn't remember this, but I could show you right here, even though you can't see it. But my last point of the first sermon that I preached was, I can be completely known and completely loved. So we changed it just a little bit to fully known and fully loved. And I really think that as you get into these things, and can I just go ahead and say this? 5 years is enough for the new to wear off, and enough for us to kind of get to a place where we might start losing some of the luster or losing some of the fire or losing some of the things where we think, hey, man, this is exciting and this is new, but, I can even say it this way. I started off being in a band in ministry, and all year long we would play together as a band, and we would do stuff, and it was awesome. And then during the summers, we'd get in a car and we'd spend weeks together, and about 3 weeks later, we didn't like each other because you're in a car with them all the time, you know what I mean? And so 5 years is long enough for you to be able to see some of my scars and some of my shortcomings and some of my issues and things, and yet I appreciate the fact that y'all still love me and allow me to be a part of what God's doing at this church all the time, and vice versa. But the bottom line of what's next is love one another. And we want to encourage each of you to find new ways to love one another. And as a church, we want to support the things that we can to help people love one another. And if 2020's taught us anything, is that you don't have to look at the past to figure out how to do this. God wants to use you right where you are right now. We want to help anybody that wants to discover that God loves them and God has an incredible plan for their life if they will follow him and trust him. But more than anything else, we just want to help people discover they're fully known and fully loved by God. That God can meet you right where you are, no matter where you are in life, and he can lead you to life in him. And at this point in time, here's what I tell you. That's not a program. That's not a goal. That's a command of the Lord, and it's something that's not just my responsibility, and it's not the staff's responsibility. It's our responsibility as a church to take up the mantle of saying we're going to be a church that just loves one another. And what the words of the Lord said, and I'll remind you, because some of you know why we needed this 5 years ago, and some of you don't. But the place where I started in this church would be the place I would stand today. We just need to be reminded that loving one another begins with the people that are right here, and it goes out from there. We need to do everything we can to love on one another here, and then there's nothing more attractive than when people see a place where people love and respect one another, even though they're not all the same, even though they don't agree on everything, even though not everybody likes things the same way. When love can lead the way, then we can do incredible things for the ministry and for the Lord in this world. And so that's really what I want to just say. Just bring it all back to that. Let's be a place that loves one another. And that's what we have for you tonight. Now, here's the other thing. I'm just going to close with this thought. The grace that has been extended to the leadership of this church, whether it's staff leadership or whether it's volunteer leadership, as we've had to make so many incredible changes in such a short amount of time, even including tonight, where every one of us in our hearts as staff want annual celebration to be just kind of the biggest deal ever. And it breaks our heart that we can't all get together and celebrate together and eat together and do this tonight, but yet we still continue to prove that God's leading this thing. So let me just say thank you. Thank you for your generosity. That allows us to continue to do the ministries of the church here in a great way. Thank you for your patience with us as we all learn how to navigate things in the culture that we've been given right now and to do things with excellence, just like we wanted to. But just thank you more than anything else for loving one another. And let's just continue to do that as we look forward to what God's going to do in this coming year. So here's what I want to do. I just want to close our time together with a time of prayer, and then we'll be dismissed tonight. God, we thank you so much for what you have done through the ministry of First Baptist Church and what you continue to do in the ministries of First Baptist Church. And God, we are super excited to be part of this place. And we're excited about the things that we get to do. But God, let us not be so focused on those things that we miss the most important thing that you've called us to do, which is to love you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And God, my prayer is that every one of us would commit in a fresh and new way to love one another, to find ways to love one another, and to be a catalyst for the type of love that comes only from having you at the center of our life. And God, let that love that we have just spill out on one another and drive us in all the things as we do. God, you've already demonstrated through this last year, we can make all the plans that we want to, but you're in control of these things. So let us just trust you and follow you and find comfort and peace and contentment and joy in knowing your word and following you. And God, just as you commanded your disciples, as you were getting ready to ascend into heaven after a horrific crucifixion on the cross, and you just reminded them the new command is that they love one another, because it's by that love that people will know that they are your disciples. God, let us love one another in such a way that people know that we are yours. God, that's our prayer tonight. Thank you so much for all that you do here. And God, let us continue to honor you in the way that we live, in the way that we serve, and in the way that we love. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. All right, to make it official, I need a motion to leave. Thank you, Dick. All right, any second to that? Thank you. And we're officially done with this. You guys are awesome. Thank you for joining us tonight for annual celebration. I hope you learned some things, enjoyed some things, had a great time, and we will see you with us soon. Thanks.